Start. I now come to the question of reduction in fares. The Transport Advisory Council has recommended an increase in fares. The fact has to be remembered that compared to the passenger fares on the domestic services in foreign countries, passenger fares in the Indian Airlines Corporation are quite low. The fares on certain domestic sectors in Australia and the tourist class in the USA are, however, very low because of favorable circumstances of high utilization of equipment and personnel and high load factor. Such circumstances do not prevail in India. Before nationalization, some of the private airlines charged very low fares which were clearly uneconomic. It is true that lower fares have a better charm in attracting traffic, but expansion of traffic at lower fares, however desirable it may be as an objective, would amount to a loss. If we are losing now and if we say that we will attract more traffic by lowering the fares, the traffic might increase, but then the loss is not likely to be covered. So the fact therefore is that the Transport Advisory Council has recommended that there should be an increase in the airfares. That is the factual position in regard to the Indian Airlines Corporation, and honorable members will see that while there has been loss, it has not been of the magnitude that is mentioned. And secondly, the future improvements that we are going to undertake would certainly reduce the depreciation costs, but we must wait in course of time for the full traffic that would be carried by the Boeings to make them near economic. Of course, the fact always remains that in most countries airlines have to be subsidized, and I can also tell the House about the requests that have been constantly made to me, namely that if we take away the excise duty on aviation petrol, the corporation will show a profit immediately. That can be done if we merely want to cheat the public, or even for the long time being lull members of parliament into a feeling that this corporation is making a profit. But I feel that it would be much better for them to show a loss and to strive to lessen it than to gain an advantage of the type mentioned by me. This is a matter which has not been decided and I am making a mention of it. We can easily wipe off the big loss, but that would not be the correct thing to do, because government would be doing something in order to bolster up an industry which it is running. I am sorry that Mrs. Leelavati Munshi is not here because she raised the question about the working of the state undertakings. I only illustrate the point that I am not prepared to camouflage the real position by means of any secret subsidies, and if we are going to do anything of that sort, it has to be told to members of parliament. If a state undertaking results in loss, then it is to be admitted as a loss. There are various considerations which make us take up a certain undertaking in the state sector, and the parliament is certainly entitled to know how it is being run. Therefore, I would like to assure the House that so far as state undertakings are concerned, we shall do our very best to see that they are run efficiently, and if they are not run efficiently or either incur losses, we shall not make an attempt to camouflage the real position so far as parliament is concerned, because it is only by the criticism of honorable members of parliament that the position could possibly be improved. Sir, some reference about disparities in development of different states was made just now. All that I can say is that the eighth plan has taken this matter into account, but disparities exist not merely because of neglect of government but also because of certain natural factors. We can only try to overcome them in parts. We cannot altogether eliminate them completely. Wherever we cannot establish a big industry in one particular area, we try to supplement it by putting a number of smaller industries and creating more employment potential. This is a task in the fulfillment of which the Planning Commission is doubly interested, and I can assure honorable members that if there is any default, it is not because it can possibly be avoided. I think, sir, a reference was made about slum clearance and slum houses. I wish my young colleague Mr. Chandra had taken charge of it earlier, but sir, I would like to claim a little privilege in regard to this particular matter because I am very deeply interested in this problem myself. I would refer to the recent statement made by the Honorable Minister for Urban Development in the Lok Sabha, a copy of which has been placed on the table of the Rajya Sabha. The government are alive to the urgency of the problem. Turning to internal resources for the plan, I do not propose here to offer any detailed comments on particular tax measures or on the particular criticisms as those offered by honorable members. But I wish to make it clear that the problem before us is as much of internal resources as of external resources. The only difference between the two is in terms of the degree of freedom of action that we ourselves enjoy in regard to them. Because it is possible for us to raise internal resources provided a large measure of public support is coming behind this. It would not be possible even so to raise external resources, and that is the basic distinction between the two types of resources that we need. I have said on a number of occasions that in the present circumstances we shall have to try and reduce deficit financing over the plan period below the original estimate of rupees 1200 crores. That implies much greater effort at economy in regard to expenditure, both developmental and non-developmental, and greater reliance on other resources of finance with taxation, borrowing and small savings. The additional taxation measures at the center constitute the greatest prop we have built so far in support of the 7th plan and our developmental effort in general. In the light of experience, we shall strengthen this prop by administrative and other measures as are required to make it carry the burden of higher and higher levels of developmental outlay. I think, sir, that by taking a large step forward in many directions, we have also created a horizon of reasonably stable expectations with reference to which private industry can make its plans for the future. Sir, it is said that the proof of the pudding is in the eating thereof, and only the future will show how far the new orientation that we have given to the tax system will serve the needs of a developing economy. But I submit that the new system deserves a fair trial as it makes an honest attempt to reconcile many divergent objectives that need to be reconciled in a fast developing economy. I cannot, of course, lay claim to having satisfied all tastes. My friends of the opposition parties, for example, feel so strongly about one point that they had to make their views felt in the other house by a division. While much has been done in the sphere of central taxation, a great deal more needs to be done in regard to mobilizing the savings of the people, small and large. Whether for the public sector or the private sector, honorable members will appreciate that the large increase in borrowing from the banks by private business indicates that the problem of finding non-inflationary finance for development is not peculiar to the public sector alone. It is often said by critics of the public sector that the public sector is able to fight what might be called great inflationary threat to finance or the money that is created. But today the position is that much of the improvement that has taken place in the private sector and that is taking place today is dependent on bank credit or credit from financial institutions. Therefore, the cry that government are the major contributories in regard to inflation by spending in the public sector would not be correct. But I do not say that in itself is wrong, because it means some development. It also throws upon the government the responsibility for keeping a more watchful eye on monetary movements than they normally have to do. Therefore, it makes it all the more necessary for us to mobilize the savings of the people, and the problem of internal resources for the plan rests on that at the present juncture. My colleague speaking yesterday spoke about small savings, so that I will content myself with impressing once again on honorable members the organizational and other efforts that we must make to promote savings if internal resources are yet to be avoided from becoming a bottleneck in our plan implementation. While I am still on the subject of internal resources, I would like to refer to one point made by our House's financial expert. He complained about the lack of uniformity in the rate of sales tax in different states and suggested the introduction of a comprehensive bill in Parliament to bring about uniformity. The first point to remember in this context is that taxation of sales or purchases inside a tax is a state subject, while that on sales or purchases in the course of interstate trade is a union subject. As regards the state sales tax, after the coming into force of the Central Sales Tax Act of 1956, certain goods have been declared to be of special importance in interstate trade or commerce, that is cotton, cotton yarn, coal, etc. On these commodities, restrictions have been imposed on the powers of state of levy tax. Full stop.